A father is supposed to fear many things: accidents, illnesses, the unknown. But nothing prepared me for waking up to the sound of my newborn daughter screaming in terror. It started with Grace's cry, sharp, sudden, the kind that slices straight into your chest. I shot upright, heart pounding. For a split second, I thought it was just a normal baby fuss. But then the second sound hit, a violent, earth-shaking crack. Our front door didn't open. It exploded. The frame splintered like matchsticks, and the door slammed into the wall so hard the whole house trembled. My brain couldn't keep up, but my body already knew. Training kicks in before thoughts ever do. Kylie jolted awake beside me, clutching the blanket to her chest. She was still recovering from her C-section, pale, exhausted, vulnerable. The panic on her face was worse than the noise. "David, what is happening?" she whispered, voice breaking. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I simply raised a hand, signaling her to stay behind me. Heavy boots pounded down the hallway, multiple people armed, confident, not even pretending to be quiet. They wanted us to hear them. They wanted fear. A voice shouted, shrill and triumphant, "Child Protective Services, we have a warrant. Nobody move." Except it wasn't CPS. I knew that tone. I knew that arrogance. The bedroom door flew open, and there she stood, Karen Lowe, my HOA president, the self-appointed tyrant of Oakwood Creek. She looked like a dictator dressed for brunch. Helmet-hard blonde hair, bright red lipstick, pantsuit tailored like armor. Her expression said she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Behind her stood three oversized men wearing cheap tactical gear, wannabe commandos who looked like they bought everything from the discount rack at a military surplus store. One carried a gurney, another held a taser, the third had a baton, and then there was the cameraman, a skinny guy in glasses holding a professional camera, red light blinking, already filming like we were the season finale of some trash reality show. "There they are," Karen practically sang for the camera. "The unfit father, the unstable mother, and the endangered newborn." She pointed right at me with a manicured finger. "David Martinez, you are a danger to your family. We're here to rescue your child." The venom in that word rescue nearly snapped something inside me. She lifted a printed sheet, shaky, misaligned text, obviously fake, but held it up like Moses presenting stone tablets. "This is a court order signed by a judge," she declared. The cameraman zoomed in dramatically as if the paper meant anything. Kylie burst into tears, arms instinctively wrapping around her stomach. Grace, frightened by the shouting, wailed louder, a sound that tore through me. "You can't take her," Kylie cried. "She's 3 days old. She needs me." Karen didn't even look at her. "Get the baby," she told the men, "and bring the mother. She clearly needs a psychiatric evaluation." The biggest goon started unfolding the gurney. The other two moved toward Grace's bassinet. That was it. That was my line in the sand. The world narrowed. The fear vanished. My mind went cold, quiet, precise, like flipping a switch I prayed I'd never need again. They were not touching my daughter. They were not touching my wife. I scanned the room like a battlefield. Angles, distances, objects. Oak chair by the window. Lamp with a heavy base. One goon off balance. Another reaching too far. The third distracted by the gurney. I stepped forward. "Back away from her," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like the voice I buried when I left the Navy. The goons hesitated. Karen barked, "Don't listen to him. He's bluffing. Just grab the baby." The first goon reached for Grace. I moved. I snatched the oak chair, turned it in my hands, and swung it like a hammer. The chair smashed into his helmet with a crack that echoed through the room. Plastic shattered. He screamed and fell back, clutching his face. The second goon fumbled for his taser. I slammed into him with my shoulder, driving him into the wall. I grabbed his wrist and twisted hard. A sickening snap echoed. He collapsed, screaming. The third tried to rush me, but he was slow. Mass, not skill. I sidestepped, hooked his foot, and he crashed headfirst into the carpet with a grunt that probably knocked the wind clean out of him. 5 seconds. 3 bodies down. The cameraman froze. Karen's smirk dissolved. I stood there, chest rising and falling, ready for whatever came next. But then, sirens, loud, close, lights flashing through the window. 2 sheriff's deputies burst in, guns drawn. Hands behind your head, on your knees, now! My stomach dropped. Karen had planned this too. She stepped forward, voice dripping with fake innocence. Officers, thank goodness. He attacked us without warning. I told you he was dangerous. They didn't know the men on the floor weren't real officers. They didn't know the court order was forged. They didn't know they were being used. I caught Kylie's terrified eyes. She shook her head, pleading silently. I lowered myself slowly and laced my hands behind my head. Cold cuffs snapped around my wrists. Karen's smile returned. Bigger, crueler. See? Exactly like I warned you, she told the deputies. Now please secure the baby before he hurts someone else. The deputies started pulling Kylie from the bed. The gurney squeaked closer. They were taking my wife. They were taking my daughter. But Karen didn't know something. None of them did. Every camera on my property wasn't just recording, it was live streaming to a secure server monitored by men I trusted with my life. Navy brothers, federal friends, real authority. Help was already on the way. And this nightmare didn't begin that morning. It started a year earlier, the day Kylie and I moved into Oakwood Creek. People say a nightmare begins suddenly, but this one had been growing quietly, like mold behind wallpaper, long before the door exploded that morning. It started the day Kylie and I bought the place. Oakwood Creek, small, neat, safe, a quiet little suburb with tree-lined streets and mailboxes that all looked like they came from the same catalog. After years of deployments, barracks, and temporary rentals, I just wanted normal. A backyard big enough for a grill. A spare room we hoped would one day be a nursery. A neighborhood where Saturdays were boring and peaceful. Kylie deserved that life more than anyone. She followed me through bases, relocations, and long absences without a single complaint. This house was supposed to be my thank you, our forever home. And for a few weeks, it actually felt like that. We painted rooms, we planted flowers, we met neighbors who waved and chatted. One of them, old Fred from 2 houses down, became a friend instantly. A retired postal worker with sharp humor and 1,000 lawn tips. But he also gave us our first warning. Keep an eye out for Karen Lowe, he said casually, trimming his roses. She runs the HOA like a queen with a private army. And she likes being in control. A little too much. I laughed at the time. I'd met real tyrants overseas. How bad could one overly enthusiastic HOA president be? I found out exactly 1 week later. We came home to a stiff envelope tucked under the doormat. Inside was a formal violation notice. Embossed header, bold font, threats of fines. Our offense? A garden gnome. A tiny ceramic gnome Kylie's grandmother gave her. It wasn't loud, bright, or tacky, but apparently non-approved lawn decor violated Section C, Paragraph 4 of the HOA rules. I wanted to throw the letter in her face. Kylie sighed and said, "It's not worth it, David. We'll just put it in the backyard." I agreed, but the irritation lingered, and that was just the beginning. In the months that followed, we were fine because our garbage can was visible for 2 hours after pickup. We were warned because our mulch wasn't the approved brand. We got a citation because Karen claimed she saw me trimming a bush improperly. None of this was about rules. It was about reminding us who held the power. I even tried talking to her once at the annual HOA barbecue. I walked over, smiling, hoping she was just strict, not malicious. "Karen, I think there's been some misunderstanding about these notices." She cut me off before I could finish. "There is no misunderstanding, Mr. Martinez." Her voice was icy. "The rules apply to everyone. If you cannot follow simple guidelines, perhaps this isn't the right neighborhood for you." She walked away without another word. That was the moment I knew she wasn't just controlling, she was cruel. Fred confirmed it later. "She picks a family every few years," he muttered. harasses them until they move out, clears the way for developers. Seen it happen before? I didn't believe him. Not fully. Not until months later. Because everything escalated the moment Kylie got pregnant. We were excited, terrified, happy. But the stress Karen caused was eating at her, raising her blood pressure, keeping her up at night. So when things finally went quiet for a few weeks, we hoped maybe the storm had passed. We were wrong. One crisp autumn afternoon, a black luxury car pulled into our driveway. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, holding a leather briefcase and wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He introduced himself as Mr. Thompson, representative of a development project. Then he handed me a folder with an offer for our home. The offer was a joke, barely above what we paid months earlier, nowhere near market value. I almost laughed. "We're not selling," I said firmly. "This is our home." His smile faded into something colder. "You should reconsider. Mrs. Lowe is very supportive of our plans." And just like that, everything clicked. Karen's harassment wasn't random. It wasn't personal. It was strategic. She wanted our house gone. "No," I repeated, handing him back the folder. "We're staying." He snapped the briefcase shut. "You won't like what comes next." He drove off. And across the street, I saw Karen's curtains shift. She'd been watching the whole exchange. The next morning, she unleashed hell. 3 violation notices in one day. A $200 fine for a tiny driveway crack that existed before we moved in. A $100 fine for unauthorized recreational equipment, our porch swing. A warning that our indoor nursery paint color was visible from the street and therefore needed approval. Indoor. That was when something in me broke. I stormed across the street and banged on her door. She opened it with the fake sweetness of someone who smiled for cameras, but snarled at people. "You're harassing my pregnant wife," I said, voice shaking with controlled rage. "It ends now." She smiled, slow, poisonous. "I'm simply enforcing community standards. If you cannot comply, you're welcome to leave." My fist clenched. She wanted me angry, wanted me to snap. I forced my breathing steady. "This isn't over." Her smile sharpened. "Oh, I know. Some people insist on learning things the hard way." She closed the door on my face. Fred watched from his lawn, shaking his head. He didn't need to say anything. We both knew a war had started. And Karen Lowe didn't play by any rules. That war reached its peak months later, on the morning my door was kicked in. The morning she came for my newborn daughter. The morning she thought she had finally won. But she had no idea who she was dealing with. Because while she was busy abusing her little HOA power trip, my friends, federal level, military level, had already seen every second of her crimes stream from my cameras. Help wasn't coming. It was already here. And Karen was about to learn exactly what happens when you try to steal a Navy SEAL's family. That night, everything snapped. It was close to 9 p.m. Allison finally managed to put our newborn down after hours of soothing, rocking, feeding. She was exhausted, her eyes half open, movements slow, the fatigue of childbirth still clinging to her. I stepped outside for 2 minutes just to take the trash to the curb. 2 minutes. That's all it took. As I turned back toward the house, I saw movement at my front door. A shadow, a figure. Then I heard a scream. Allison's scream. I sprinted. When I reached the doorway, my blood ran cold. Gloria HOA Karen was inside our home. Inside, holding her phone up like she was filming some documentary. And my wife was clutching our newborn so tight her arms were trembling. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" I barked. Gloria didn't back away, didn't flinch, didn't even acknowledge that she trespassed. Instead, she pointed at my baby. "This child is clearly distressed. I'm taking her until authorities arrive." I stepped forward. She stepped back. "Allison," I said, "go to the bedroom. Lock the door." My wife ran down the hallway with the baby. The moment she disappeared, Gloria tried to follow. I blocked her with one arm. "Not a chance." She glared at me, eyes wild. "You think you can intimidate me? I know my rights." "You broke into my home," I said, voice low, steady. "You don't have any rights here." She raised her phone, recording again. This entire neighborhood will know you're violent, unstable, unfit. I stared her dead in the eyes. Lady, you have no idea who you're talking to. She scoffed. Oh, please. You're just another aggressive. You're talking, I interrupted, to a United States Navy SEAL. Finally, she froze. Not for long, but long enough to see the reality settle into her face. Someone who understood that for the first time in her HOA queen life, she'd gone too far. You, you can't threaten me, she stammered. I'm not threatening you, I said. I'm warning you. Just then, flashing red and blue lights appeared outside. Police again, because of course Gloria had called them on her way in. Two officers rushed toward the door. Gloria practically ran to them. Arrest him. He's abusive. He's hiding a neglected child. The officers moved past her and looked at me. Sir, is your wife and baby safe? Yes, I said, but this woman forced her way into my home and tried to grab my newborn. Gloria gasped like I'd insulted her crown. That's a lie. I was conducting a wellness check. The officers exchanged a look. Ma'am, one said calmly, HOA members don't have the authority to enter a private residence. I do, she shrieked. I'm the HOA President. Still not an authority, the officer replied. I almost smiled. Then Allison came out from the hallway, baby in her arms, crying but unharmed. The moment the officers saw her, everything became clear. No neglect, no danger. Only a terrified mother and a newborn who just wanted peace. One officer turned to Gloria. Ma'am, you're under investigation for trespassing, harassment, falsifying a welfare complaint, and endangering a minor. Her face drained of color. No, I run this community. I run it. Not anymore, he said. They escorted her outside as she kicked, yelled, and tried blaming everyone except herself. But she was finished. Finally. When they were gone, when the house was quiet again, I closed the door and leaned against it, exhausted but relieved. My wife stepped closer, resting her head on my shoulder. Is it over? She whispered. I held her, held them both. It's over, I said, and she'll never come near this family again. That night, for the first time since bringing our baby home, the house felt safe, because the real threat was never the crying, or the noise, or the newborn. It was the woman who thought she could control everything, but she underestimated the one family she should never have messed with. Mine.